wants a better life, more success, more peace, more progress. But very few ask the right question. What are the actual skills that make it possible? Not talents, not gifts, not advantages, skills. The ones that you build, the ones that stay with you, even when circumstances shift, the ones that keep paying you back for the rest of your life. It's easy to look at successful people and assume they had something you didn't. Better timing, more support, more luck. But if you strip away the noise, if you really pay attention, you'll notice something else. They've built a foundation, not of shortcuts, not of hacks, but of skills, quiet, powerful, transferable skills that give them leverage in every environment, skills that create opportunity, skills that build resilience, skills that help them navigate problems instead of collapse under them. And the truth is, every person who ever built something extraordinary did so on the back of skills that most people ignore. Not because they're complicated, but because they're simple, unimpressive, easy to overlook, easy to postpone. But those same skills, if practiced consistently, become the tools that shape everything else. They determine how you think, how you respond, how you grow, how you lead. These are not skills that go out of style. They're not tied to trends or industries or timing. These are life skills, the kind that work in every season, in every relationship, in every career. They don't just help you win. They help you stay strong when you're losing. They help you build when you're tired. They help you stand tall when nothing around you is easy. And if you want a life that is strong, flexible, meaningful, and full of momentum, you need these skills. Not someday, now, not as theory, as practice. Because life won't wait until you feel ready. It moves now. And if you want to move with it, you need to sharpen the tools that matter most. So here are the skills that I think everybody truly needs in life. The first skill is the ability to focus. Not the kind of focus that lasts for 5 minutes while the commercials are on, but the kind of focus that builds something, that cuts through noise, that sees through to the end. This skill is rare, not because people don't want it, but because they've never trained for it. They've spent years conditioning their mind to jump, to check, to pause, to run from depth into comfort. And so when the moment comes that requires attention, they don't have the muscle. But everything you want, clarity, progress, momentum, mastery, it all begins with focus. If you can't sit with a problem long enough to solve it, if you can't push past the urge to distract yourself, if you can't stay in the room when things get quiet, then you'll never find the depth required to build anything that lasts. Focus is not about intensity. It's about staying. It's about holding your attention on one thing long enough for it to grow. Most people never get far because they never stay long. They start and stop. They get excited, then overwhelmed. They move from idea to idea, hoping something will be easier than the last. But the people who win are the ones who stop chasing easier and start chasing better. They choose to go deep, to give their energy to one thing at a time, to respect the process instead of bouncing between possibilities. This skill changes everything. When you build the ability to focus, you stop wasting time. You stop repeating the same lessons. You stop making shallow progress in 20 different directions. You start stacking days. You start compounding effort. You start making decisions that align instead of distract. And your life begins to reflect it. Not because you did more, but because you finally did what mattered. You build focus by doing hard things without interruption. Not for hours, for minutes, for blocks of time that stretch you, but don't break you. Back in my day, they used to attach the telephone right to the wall. That way, you can leave it there, right? So maybe you put your phone in another room. You close the door. You set a timer. You say, for the next 30 minutes, this is the only thing I care about. And you train your mind to stay. You build focus by reducing options, because the mind is a wanderer when it's surrounded by choices. If you want to go deep, you need to remove the friction, remove the temptation. Don't trust your willpower, trust your setup. Make it easy to lock in, make it harder to escape, and watch what happens when your environment supports your effort. Focus is a gift you give yourself. It's how you reclaim your time, how you reclaim your peace. Because when you're always scattered, you're always anxious. But when you focus, the anxiety lifts. Not because the world is calm, but because you are. Because you've decided what deserves your energy, and you're giving it without apology. You learn how to focus through boredom, through resistance, through the urge to check something, say something, change something. You feel all of it and stay anyway. You stay because your future depends on your ability to do one thing well. Not 10 things half-heartedly. One thing with your full attention. This skill doesn't get built in theory. It gets built in the practice. You don't read your way into better focus. You sit in the tension and train. You don't need more stimulation. You need more intention. You need to choose your work like it matters and then do it like it matters, because it does. The strongest people you know, they aren't the ones doing the most. They're the ones doing what matters most, and doing it without distraction. They've built a life that reflects their priorities because they've trained their mind to protect their energy. They've decided that nothing is more expensive than scattered focus, so they stopped paying that price. And now it's your turn. Start small. One task, one block of time, one decision to close every tab, mental, emotional, digital, and give your presence to the moment in front of you. It won't be perfect, it won't be easy, but it will be powerful. Because when you learn to focus, you gain control of the one thing that drives everything else, your attention. And what you give your attention to, that's what your life becomes. Next, the second skill every person needs in life is the ability to communicate clearly. Not just speak, not just talk, communicate with intention, with purpose, with clarity. This isn't about being eloquent. It's not about having the perfect vocabulary. It's about saying what you mean without confusion, without fear, without apology. Most people talk but don't communicate. They speak in circles. They use 10 words when 5 would do. They tiptoe around the point. They leave room for interpretation. They say what they think others want to hear. And because of that, they create uncertainty at work, in relationships, in their goals. They don't get what they want because they never clearly ask for it. They're misunderstood, not because others aren't listening, but because they're not being direct. Clear communication is not aggressive. It's confident. It's built on a deep respect for yourself and for the person you're speaking to. It means you care enough to be honest. You care enough to be simple. You care enough to remove the fog. Because when you speak with clarity, you give people something to stand on. You create stability in the conversation. You learn to communicate clearly by knowing what you want to say before you say it. That means slowing down. That means thinking. That means asking yourself, what is the point here? What do I really need to say? And then having the courage to say exactly that without dressing it up, without softening it to the point of meaninglessness, without stretching it until the message gets lost. This skill sharpens every part of your life. When you communicate clearly, your work gets better. Your meetings get shorter. Your intentions get known. You stop wasting time explaining and start using your time executing. Because people can only support what they understand. If your vision is blurry, your progress will be too. In relationships, clarity builds trust. It removes guessing games. It closes the gap between what you feel and what the other person hears. You stop assuming they should know. You start sharing what's actually going on. And in that sharing, connection happens. Misunderstanding shrinks. Expectations align. That's how relationships grow. Not from more talking, but from clearer talking. You learn to listen differently. Because when you value clarity, you listen for it. You don't just wait for your turn to speak. You pay attention to what's being said. You ask questions that reveal meaning. You reflect back to confirm you're hearing the truth. And in doing that, you build more than communication. You build understanding. This habit requires honesty. It requires presence. You can't communicate clearly if you're half invested, if you're checking out while talking, if you're speaking from reaction instead of reflection. Clarity lives in the person who slows down enough to mean what they say. You'll know you're getting better at this when people begin to thank you for being easy to work with, easy to talk to, easy to trust. Because clarity feels like leadership. It feels like confidence. It makes people feel safe, not because you're controlling them, but because you're not hiding anything. This skill can be practiced anywhere, with a stranger, with your team, with your partner, in an email, in a conversation, in how you express a boundary, in how you give a compliment, in how you ask for help. Every moment is a chance to say what you mean and to mean what you say. So start today. Speak one sentence more clearly than you did yesterday. Strip away the fluff. Say the thing you were going to tiptoe around. Practice being real. Because clear communication is not just about being understood. It's about living a life that doesn't rely on people reading your mind. It's about stepping into the kind of honesty that opens doors, strengthens trust, and makes every connection sharper, deeper, cleaner. Next. The third skill every person needs in life is emotional control. Not suppression, not denial. Control, the ability to feel without being flooded, to sit with discomfort without being consumed, to respond without reacting, to own your emotions without letting them own you. This skill is rare. And it's not because people lack heart. It's because they were never taught how to hold it. Most people are not making decisions. They're managing reactions. They're not living with clarity. They're living under the weight of whatever feeling happens to be loudest. Anger, shame, frustration, fear. Those emotions take the driver's seat, and the person inside, they're no longer leading, they're surviving. But emotional control is not the absence of feeling. It's the strength to hold the feeling without handing it the microphone. It's the quiet pause between I feel this and I'm going to act on this. And in that pause lives freedom. Because now you're not at the mercy of your mood. You're grounded in your values. You build emotional control by training your pause. The moment you feel triggered, the moment the pressure rises, the moment the heat hits your chest, that's the moment you learn to breathe, to observe, to separate what's happening inside from what you choose to do outside. You don't deny the emotion. You name it. You allow it, but you don't obey it. This skill is critical in relationships because unchecked emotion wrecks connection. It floods conversations with heat when they need calm. It drives defensiveness when they need listening. It brings past pain into present peace. But when you know how to hold your emotion, really hold it, you stop damaging what you love. You stop sabotaging what you're trying to build. This is so important in leadership because no one trusts the person who loses themselves in stress. No one follows the one who breaks under pressure. People are drawn to presence, to calm, to the person who can hold tension without amplifying it. And that presence comes from emotional control, from the inner steadiness that says, I can feel this without falling apart. You'll develop this skill through repetition, through the practice of noticing your emotions without rushing to fix them, through learning that a wave of frustration doesn't mean something is wrong. It just means something inside is being stretched. And that stretch is growth, not danger. You learn emotional control by forgiving yourself for past reactions, because shame will make you suppress your feelings instead of learn from them. But you're allowed to grow. You're allowed to do better. You're allowed to rebuild your relationship with your emotional self, not by ignoring it, but by learning how to sit beside it. This doesn't mean becoming numb. It doesn't mean becoming cold. It means becoming someone who can stand inside a storm and still choose where they step. Someone who doesn't need the world to calm down before they can show up strong. Someone who leads from groundedness, not from volatility. This habit will change how you move through life. You'll stop over-explaining. You'll stop apologizing for things that aren't yours. You'll stop attaching to drama. You'll notice what's happening without having to be owned by it. And that awareness, that power to choose your response, that's where your life starts to rise. Because if you can control your emotions, you can control your momentum. You can stay consistent through turbulence. You can remain clear in conflict. You can remain kind when others are cruel. And that consistency becomes your edge. Your presence becomes a stabilizer, not just for you, but for everyone around you. The fourth skill every person needs in life is the ability to delay gratification, the ability to want something and wait, to feel the pull toward comfort and not answer it, to see the shortcut and not take it. Not because you don't want the reward, but because you want something more than just right now. Most people don't struggle because they're incapable. They struggle because they haven't trained themselves to wait, to hold off, to sacrifice the easy win for the deep one. Their goals are right, but their timing is impulsive. They want to plant today and harvest tomorrow. And when the results don't show up fast enough, they convince themselves that nothing is working. But nothing meaningful grows on demand. The best things, health, wisdom, reputation, peace, mastery, require seasons. They require effort without applause. They require discipline in the dark. The ones who can work while it's still quiet. They're the ones who can keep going without immediate reward. Delayed gratification is not punishment. Quiet decision to build something that lasts. It's how you separate maturity from emotion, how you choose principle over impulse, how you train yourself to rise above the need